Hello everyone, this video will be comparing hunters with Awakened 1 versus Awakened 2. Awakened 1 gives the hunter a new permanent ability that is always active, while Awakened 2 gives the hunter a new ability that can be selected on level up, as well as an additional permanent ability slot. For all these comparisons, I added the new Awakened 2 ability in the 4th slot, and I used the same set of Titan gear unless otherwise specified, and on the same level of Dark Forest, level 1. The boss can have either 500 million or 2 billion health, depending on what modifier you receive when breaking the crystal. I just compared the Awakened 2 with the same amount of health the boss had when I ran my Awakened 1 test. You can find timestamps on the video if you're looking for a certain hunter. The videos of Awakened 1 will be on the left, while Awakened 2 will be on the right. Obviously, this isn't a perfect comparison for all these scenarios, but I'll be talking through some of the new abilities and what I've noticed. Sometimes, it just depends on how lucky you are with the level up abilities, which build is stronger, whether with Awakened 2 or not. Some hunters don't work well with my gear setup, or in this mode, but I've included them all in this initial video so we can talk about them. I hope to release some more targeted videos in the future, setting out proper scenarios for these hunters to showcase their new abilities. There are also some currently known issues, and a few adjustments to be made to Awakened 2 that I'll cover for each hunter. One thing to keep in mind is that the unique perks Titan gear enchantment may become very nice to stack some of these new abilities once you have a lot of hunters with Awakened 2. Elf Archer's Awakened 2 ability is Empowered Ricochet. Selecting this will increase the amount of targets your arrows can ricochet to and increase the projectile damage. My Awakened 2 test did end up being about 10 seconds faster, but I believe this was just luck. There is currently a known issue where Elf Archer's damage is not increasing when you're using the new Empowered Ricochet perk, but only have one target. After this change, it should give Elf Archer a more noticeable buff. This will definitely make Elf Archer more powerful, but I don't see much use for this compared to other hunters. I think this would make Undead Grounds floor 58 a lot easier, but if you have the resources for Awakened 2, you probably have a piece of Titan gear anyways that could clear this floor. Wizard has the same Awakened 2 ability as Elf Archer, Empowered Ricochet. Selecting this will increase the amount of targets your fireballs can ricochet to and increase the projectile damage. My Awakened 2 test did end up being about 10 seconds slower, even though I selected the Empowered Ricochet perk 7 times. There are currently no logged issues with this perk on Wizard, though Elf Archer does have an issue. At the moment, some more testing would be needed, but it doesn't seem to make Wizard that much more viable, though it may help with clearing mobs, though Wizard always had the AoE for that. Gorgon received a huge buff with both her attack and Awakened 2 ability. Her attack now uses her hair to attack the enemy. You can select multi-shot, which makes her damage scale well, even before we add in her Awakened 2 ability. Her new Awakened 2 ability is Deep Hypnosis, which is the same as Succubus. The more you select Deep Hypnosis, the higher chance of triggering it, the longer the duration, and the higher amount you are decreasing your enemy's resistance by. Gorgon's new attack and Awaken 2 ability make her very powerful and can be used on higher floors or even be a powerful addition in Abyssal Dark Forest. There are currently a few known issues with Gorgon that once fixed will make her even more powerful. First, she is now incredibly laggy, and the devs plan on improving this. Secondly, when she attacks a target, she adds stacks to petrify them. Once they reach the required stacks, they become immune to the damage and take damage over time until they die, but this doesn't work on bosses. If you petrify a golem in Dark Forest, it makes it immune to damage for 10 seconds, so they can't be killed, and will slow down your run. Also, there are plans to allow your petrify stacks applied to bosses to increase your damage up to 2000% until they reset. We'll have to keep an eye for this to be introduced and see where the final numbers land. Angel's Awaken 2 ability is Holy Fire, which makes their aura add 100% zombie damage and 50% undead damage to Angel and nearby allies. This could be very powerful in the right mode, such as Abyssal Dark Forest, but watching the video here, obviously you aren't going to see a difference because all enemies don't take zombie damage or undead damage in Dark Forest. If Angel is selected on a zombie floor in Abyssal Dark Forest as a support, you can add huge buffs to your partner if they are DPS, but at the moment, Angel is very niche unless these damage types are expanded across existing or future game modes. Spider Queen's Awaken 2 ability is Arachnophobia. This increases each spider's size and damage by each active spider. My test on this in Dark Forest didn't show great results, with the Awaken 2 ability ended up being 20 seconds slower. I do believe this test didn't do Spider Queen justice and may need a bit more investigation. The new ability scales based on active spiders, and when staying next to the boss or being chased by it, you aren't able to build up that many spiders on screen to reap the benefits. You would see a lot more damage if playing with someone else who was able to keep the boss's focus and getting increased distance and multi-shots. This will allow you to keep your distance and have more active spiders on the screen at once. You may actually want to avoid the fast spotter's ability to keep them on screen longer. Druid's Awakened 2 ability is Defender's Healing Aura. This adds damage reduction and increases resistance to debuffs to the Druid and any allies within the aura. This is another ability that doesn't work well in a lot of modes. I can see this being quite powerful in the early game on no lifesteal floors in Abyssal Maze, for example, but at that point, you wouldn't have the resources for Awaken 2. It could definitely be helpful in Abyssal Dark Forest, but I've been unable to test this myself. You would be able to lower the damage output of the boss and have the healing aura, which would allow the other player to stay on the boss longer without having to worry about healing, but again, this ability is quite situational and won't see much use in a lot of different modes at the moment. Imp Master's Awakened 2 ability is Master of Puppets. Each time you select this ability, you gain 3 more minions. This was a huge buff to Imp Master overall, but I did have mixed results. You can see in the Dark Forest test, I was able to clear the floor 15 seconds faster, which is quite good considering I only had the ability 3 times, with a 4th one coming at the very end of the run. I did test this in solo Abyssal Dark Forest with the ability to select perks a lot more times, but the damage was still lacking to be viable in this mode, based on my gear. The good news is there's a planned enhancement to increase Imp Master's damage per imp on this new Awakened 2 ability, which will make Imp Master scale to do a lot more damage. Frozen Queen's Awakened 2 ability is Ice Age, which increases the bonus of long freeze by 3 seconds. This pairs well with her Awakened 1 ability, which increases your damage by 20% for each target you apply freeze to. This will allow you to carry many more stacks for increased damage between killing mobs. This did reflect with a faster kill time in the tests you are watching now, but I still don't believe it was shown to its full potential. I had to stay on the boss to make sure I didn't lose poison stacks, which would then cause a drop off in damage. This ability would work a lot better if you had a partner that was pulling mobs to you or keeping your stacks as you went and gained stacks before coming back and targeting the boss. I believe this has a lot of opportunity for some nice damage in modes that have a lot of mobs. Axe Master's Awakened 2 ability is Improved Axe. This increases the damage of axe throw by 250% and its size by 33%, up to 200%. This new ability allows you to get huge buffs to Axe Master's damage. I've been having a lot of fun running Axe Master in Dark Forest now, even on some of the later levels. If paired with a support hunter that is debuffing the enemy, it allows Axe Master's damage to scale very well. As you can see in the test, there is almost a full 2 minutes between the kill times. If possible, I'll definitely prioritize getting Axe Master to Awaken 2 when you're able. Rocky's Awakened 2 ability is Earth Attunement, which adds 50% earth damage each time the ability is selected. This definitely makes Rocky a more viable hunter in some of the modes now, with the increased damage. As you see in my test, there's about a 40-second improvement in my time clearing the floor with this ability being selectable. I still don't know how well it will scale for harder modes like Abyssal Dark Forest. I don't see it making it into any regular rotations at the moment, but maybe Rocky will end up being better than I think with some future testing. Sniper's Awakened 2 ability is Multi-Shot Ricochet. Each time this ability is selected, you will gain one projectile, and your projectiles will ricochet to one additional enemy. This test also showed a huge improvement, with the Awakened 2 test being just over 40 seconds quicker. The extra projectiles and ricochets allow you to clear out mobs a lot quicker and put more stacks on the boss. This works even better when playing with another player, which can take the boss's attention and allows you to put some distance between you and the boss to capitalize on Sniper's damage bonus of being farther away from your target. I'd also mark this one down as a priority for Awakened 2. Captain Hook's Awakened 2 ability is Bad Form. This increases your parlay damage by 300% and your basic attack by 35% damage for each time the ability is taken. I really love this Awakened 2, just like Axe Master. It made Captain Hook actually viable in these modes, as you can see by my test, which had a 30-second quicker kill time, even though I was only able to select Bad Form twice. I've even run Captain Hook solo in Abyssal Dark Forest, was able to complete the first level. This is another fun hunter that I would consider prioritizing for Awakened 2. You'll have some trouble scaling in damage though if you're unlucky and don't have this ability come up on level ups. Lifestealer's Awakened 2 ability is Healing Siphon. This decreases enemy healing by 10% and heals your allies within range by 2.5% for each ability taken. During my test, I had a fairly significant difference in times, with my Awakened 2 test being 20 seconds quicker, but realistically, this new ability wouldn't have affected that. The additional damage and health from Awakening Lifestealer, with a bit better luck, probably helped more. At the moment, this ability doesn't seem to be that great. Could help in Abyssal Dark Forest if you're running support, allowing you to heal your allies so they can focus on damaging the boss, or maybe in the future if there's a mode that benefits from reducing the enemy's healing. Hopefully, a use is found for this in the future, or Lifestealer may make a comeback if reflect damage becomes useful again, which it isn't in most endgame modes at the moment. Raging Orc's Awakened 2 ability is Vengeful Agility. This ability gives you an additional 5% dodge chance for each stage of Rage. These tests showed significant difference in time, with the Awakened 2 test being 40 seconds faster. This was definitely just better execution of the Hunter after some of my tests, plus increased Hunter stats and the better ability luck on level up. Obviously, you want Raging Orc's health to be lower to deal more damage, so I focused on keeping more enemies around me and allowing myself to be stunned to reduce my healing. This test didn't do justice to show off Raging Orc's ability. I've run him in Abyssal Dark Forest, and he works well with the higher dodge chance, giving a lot more survivability. I don't have any experience running Raging Orc in Abyssal Dark Forest before Awakened 2, so I'm not sure how much of a difference the abilities are actually making. He's a very powerful hunter in Abyssal Dark Forest, so I do think Raging Orc should be marked down as a priority to make Awakened 2 if you are able. Roller's Awakened 2 ability is Earth Attunement, the same as Rocky. It adds 50% earth damage each time the ability is selected. This definitely makes Roller a more viable hunter in some of the modes now with the increased damage. In my test, there was a 40-second improvement in my time clearing the floor with this ability. Similar to Rocky, I think this is a big improvement to Roller, but I don't think it will scale for harder modes like Abyssal Dark Forest. I don't see Roller making into any rotations. With some more testing, Roller might have some use. Ninja's Awakened 2 ability is Multi-Shot Ricochet, the same as Sniper. Each time this ability is selected, you will gain one projectile, and your projectiles will ricochet to one additional enemy. This test showed a huge improvement, with Awakened 2 tests being almost a full minute quicker. The extra projectiles and ricochets allow you to clear out mobs a lot quicker and put more stacks on the bosses. I've also run some tests in Abyssal Dark Forest and was able to solo some of the levels. I'll definitely mark Ninja as a priority for Awakened 2. Renderman's Awakened 2 ability is Shadow Clones technique. This ability grants Renderman and his clones an additional 15% damage for each active clone. This pairs very well with Renderman's ability Decoy Upgrade, which decreases the cooldown of Decoy, which allows you to have more active at once. I did see a slight improvement in my test with a 10-second quicker time with Awakened 2, but I do think that some more testing will be required to see if there are any niches Renderman could fill. At the moment, it doesn't seem like Renderman would be a go-to hunter for any scenarios. There's a known issue at the moment that Renderman's clones have the stats of when the clone is spawned and do not update with Renderman's perks and levels. Gentleman's Awakened 2 ability is Mad Hatter, which makes the hats hover for 0.3 seconds before they return to Gentleman. I do think this ability is interesting, but unfortunately it didn't show well in these tests. The hats hover for longer, the more times you take this ability, but they hover at the farthest distance before they return. This doesn't allow you to capitalize on it with a boss that is chasing you down in melee. It would be very powerful if you're able to keep a boss at a set distance and allow all your hats to sit on the boss for several seconds. I do think Gentleman requires a bit more testing to see his potential, but definitely one worth keeping an eye on. Vlad's Awaken 2 ability is Improved Bats. Each time this ability is taken, it makes one bat permanent and increases Vlad and his bats' damage by 1%. This hunter, with his new Awaken 1 ability to spawn the bats, paired with this Awaken 2 ability, is definitely fun to play. It is a huge buff to Vlad, with my Awaken 2 test coming in at just over 2 minutes quicker. It definitely makes Vlad fun to play, and there's a lot of potential. I attempted to test him in Abyssal Dark Forest, but there's a known issue that makes Vlad not viable here. Vlad's Frenzy triggers off HP healed and not off damage dealt, so will never trigger with healing being disabled in Abyssal Dark Forest. The team does plan on changing this to damage dealt and allowing Vlad's healing to work in Abyssal Dark Forest. I don't think I'd make Vlad a priority for Awaken 2 if you don't have the resources to spare, but he's definitely fun to play now. It's definitely worth keeping an eye on how Vlad is after the next batch of changes to him in Abyssal Dark Forest. Mad Doctor's Awakened 2 ability is Major Disease. This increases disease per hit by 10%, which isn't a big deal. The main draw to this is it also increases the cap on disease floors by 33%. This means if the disease cap on a floor is 50%, you take this ability, you can now apply disease up to 83%. If you take it again, up to 116%, etc. This makes Mad Doctor great as a support hunter. I haven't been able to test him myself in Abyssal Dark Forest, but you can imagine the potential with a max level set with unique perks. This will allow you to scale the disease up a lot higher for a huge damage buff. I definitely think Mad Doctor would be a priority to get to Awaken 2. Ancient One's Awakened 2 ability is Fast Tentacles, which increases tentacle strike speed by 25%. You can see in my test there was an improvement of a few seconds. The boss rolled a lower health pool of only 500 million. I believe you would see a bigger benefit to this ability on longer kills. You will have to balance how many times you take this with multi-shot as well as improved tentacles. Just taking Fast Tentacles every time won't offer as big of an improvement unless you're also taking the others. Ancient One was always great at stacking, and this will improve Ancient One even further. Doesn't seem that powerful at the moment, but I do think it's worth keeping an eye out to see where Ancient One ends up long term, especially if stacking is important. Minotaur's Awakened 2 ability is Impale. This increases damage by 45% of your movement speed. In my test, there was only a few seconds of improvement with Awakened 2, but this is an interesting ability for sure. This is another hunter I think worth keeping an eye on. If you can increase your movement speed enough, there's potential for Minotaur to output a lot of damage, especially if you were to build a set focusing on movement speed and having max level Titan pieces. At the moment though, Minotaur doesn't stick out as a high priority that will fit into any regular rotations. Efreet's Awakened 2 ability is Improved Fire Mastery. This ability increases burn damage by 25% and fire stacks you apply by 1. Even when running a poison set, the Awakened 2 test was 45 seconds quicker. I just ran this for consistency with all other tests. If you really want to see Efreet shine, check the next part of the video which shows Efreet in a fire set. This set was the same as my previous set, except I swapped out 2 earth, 1 poison, and 2 tentacle power stones for 5 level 7 fire. The increased burn damage is obviously great for a fire build. The Awaken 2 test was 30 seconds quicker than Awaken 1. Unfortunately, I can't speak on how it runs in Abyssal Dark Forest at the moment, but I do think this may be a hunter that would be worth prioritizing the Awaken 2 if you're running a fire set in Dark Forest or have your fire set built for Abyssal Dark Forest. Huntalisk's Awaken 2 ability is Improved Poison Mastery. This is the same as Efreet except for the poison equivalent. It increases poison damage by 25%, the amount of poison stacks applied by 1. My Awaken 2 test was about a minute and a half quicker than Awaken 1. This definitely was a big buff to Huntalisk. I've also had some success running Huntalisk in Abyssal Dark Forest, though the damage output isn't as great as some of the other hunters. Again, this isn't a hunter I would say is a priority at the moment, but definitely worth keeping an eye on. The damage could scale very well combined with unique perks enchantment on Titan gear. Protector's Awakened 2 ability is Weakness. Unfortunately, this is a nerf to Protector if you do have it as Awakened 1, as this used to be the Awakened 1 permanent ability. When you do get Protector Awakened 2 though, it is a significant buff as it is now added to the ability pool, which allows you to select it multiple times to increase the amount of weakness you can apply. My Awakened 2 test was 30 seconds quicker, but obviously where Protector will really shine is in a support role where you can stack weakness for the damage dealer. I do think this will make Protector a priority to give it a role similar to the Ripper or Void Knight as a debuffer. Ape Lord's Awakened 2 ability is Primal Rage. Each hit when enraged increases damage and HP by 2.5% until enrage wears off. This makes Ape Lord a very powerful hunter, especially when paired with HP to damage. As you can see, getting the high roll on the Treant's health at 2 billion, Ape Lord still melts the boss, coming at 30 seconds quicker with my frenzy expiring before I was able to kill the boss even sooner. You do have to combine this with the Monkey Frenzy ability to increase your rage time, but Ape Lord is now a very powerful hunter. I run him on both Dark Forest floor 9 and Abyssal Dark Forest early floors solo, and was able to kill the boss. At the time, my Abyssal Dark Forest sets don't even have HP to damage, and Ape Lord is still a great option. Ape Lord should definitely be a priority to get Awakened 2 as soon as you can. Mech's Awakened 2 ability is Precision Targeting. It increases Mech's damage by 2.5% per yard from the target. This was another ability that didn't showcase itself very well in my test. It will work a lot better when playing with a partner who's able to keep the boss away from you so you can stay at max range. Mech can already be viable in Abyssal Dark Forest now, and this ability will only make it better, though it probably won't scale much past the first 2 or 3 levels of Abyssal Dark Forest. This is definitely another hunter worth keeping an eye on once more tests can be run and more people get their hands on it. Thor's Awakened 2 ability is Delayed Multi-Shot. It increases the number of projectiles after hitting a target by 1. I'll be honest, and I don't entirely understand this ability. It should be adding additional damage because of multi-shotting after you hit the initial target. I'm unsure if this adds additional damage when fighting a single target like a boss. My initial test wasn't very promising. This is a hunter that was always great at stacking, and this may improve that, but either way the damage output in the test I ran wasn't that great. Hopefully, a bit more clarity will come to this one with some more testing. Franky's Awakened 2 ability is Life Vest. Each enemy killed increases Franky's base HP by 40. Obviously, Franky is a hunter that has the HP to damage ability already and pairs well with an HP to damage set, and this will just make him even stronger. It isn't as large as a buff as his Awakened 1 permanent ability. I don't think this is necessarily a priority. More health from Life Vest will give you more damage, but if you're choosing between hunters because of limited resources, Franky is already very capable without Awakened 2. If you do have the resources, it's definitely worth it as Franky is such a strong hunter already that is used frequently, so buffing an already strong hunter is great, but you won't see as big of a leap with the Awakened 2 ability compared to hunters like Axe Master or Ninja, for example. Snowman's Awakened 2 ability is Ice Age, which increases the bonus of long freeze by 3 seconds. This is the same as Frozen Queen. This pairs well with his Snowman's Rage ability, which increases your movement speed, attack speed, and damage for each target you apply freeze to. This will allow you to carry many more stacks for increased damage between killing mobs. In my test, the Awaken 1 kill was a few seconds faster, but I don't believe the Awaken 2 ability was shown to its full potential. I had to stay on the boss to make sure I didn't lose poison stacks, which would then cause a drop off in damage. This ability would work a lot better if you had a partner that was pulling mobs to you, or keeping your stacks as you went and gained stacks before coming back and targeting the boss. I believe this has a lot of opportunity for some nice damage in modes that have a lot of mobs. Necromancer's Awaken 2 ability is labeled as Mighty Summons at the time of making this video, but will be renamed to Mighty Minions. This increases minion damage and movement speed by 100%. There was a decent swing in time, with the Awaken 2 being 10 seconds faster, but Necromancer is a hunter that relies a lot on his abilities. Being lucky enough to get your improved minions early, as well as finding enough more minions as well as enough mobs around to keep your minion count up, will have a big impact on your damage. I do think this will be a big improvement in Necromancer in Abyssal Dark Forest, with the meta of running max level gear, allowing you to get all the abilities you need before getting on the boss with a lot of mobs around. I think Necromancer needs more testing, but will be viable in the early levels of Abyssal Dark Forest. Skullmaster's Awaken 2 ability is Improved Elements. This ability increases the amount of fire stacks from fire skulls by 2, poison stacks from poison skulls by 2, and the duration of freeze from ice skulls by 3. For consistency, I just ran my normal setup for Skullmaster, which is fire skulls, even though I was using a poison set. I did run a test with a fire set you will see next. Awaken 2 was around 10 seconds faster when using a poison set with the fire skulls ability selected, but this setup should show better in a fire set. This set was the same as my previous set, except I swapped out 2 earth, 1 poison, and 2 tentacle power stones for 5 level 7 fire. Also, I got the high roll on health for the Treant, and Skullmaster definitely isn't cut out for this. It was a huge improvement over the Hunter test that didn't have the improved elements ability, coming in at 40 seconds faster, but I still don't think Skullmaster will be viable in endgame modes. Skullmaster does make a great stacker if you are letting someone else be the DPS, and the Awaken 2 ability is a huge buff to the Hunter, but I still don't think Skullmaster will find a place in the meta at the moment. I do think some more testing in modes like Abyssal Dark Forest will give a better idea. Arachna's Awaken 2 ability is Sticky Web. This increases the max web limit by 1, as well as keeps one web under her at all times. In my tests, this was a decent improvement with Awaken 2 being 10 seconds quicker, but I do think Arachna is even more powerful than this. In a mode like Abyssal Dark Forest, while running max level gear, you have more opportunities to take this, giving you more webs for the damage bonuses. Arachna already works in Abyssal Dark Forest on the early levels, and I think this will make her even better. It's not going to make her a top tier hunter, but it is a decent improvement. Beetle's Awaken 2 ability is Earth Attunement, which we've seen already on some previous hunters. It adds 50% earth damage. Beetle was already a good hunter in these endgame modes, and adding the earth damage makes Beetle even better. This test only showed an improvement in time about 10 seconds, but I have tested Beetle in Abyssal Dark Forest as well, and the earth damage makes a big difference. I wouldn't say Beetle is a high priority for Awakened 2 like Sniper or Ninja for example, but definitely worth doing if you're able, as Beetle will get a significant buff. Anubis' Awakened 2 ability is Minor Plague, which applies 1 disease stack per hit to the target. In my tests, Anubis is so strong that it didn't do a great job showing this Awakened 2 ability, with the treant dying less than 1 second apart. Obviously, disease is good, Anubis' damage is going to scale based on the disease cap. Taking this ability once is enough, as taking it more than that isn't going to let you apply any more disease. You can add it to your permanent abilities, then exclude it from the pool. It is definitely a good ability to have, though if your partner doesn't have disease, though they almost always will if you're playing a mode like Abyssal Dark Forest. Torment's Awakened 2 ability is Ghastly Terror, which increases the damage of Deadly Terror by 100%. My Awakened 2 test was coming in 5 seconds quicker, which isn't much to base it on. Torment is already a strong support hunter. Deadly Terror makes enemies take terror damage every second when they are terrorized. This Awakened 2 perk increases that terror damage. As far as I can tell, this doesn't increase the damage that enemies receive from other sources, so you may be better focusing on the already existing improved terror ability, which increases damage from other sources. Goblin Engineer's Awakened 2 ability is Quick Build. This increases the number of turrets each time you use your active skill to build them by 1. This allows you to get all of your turrets out quicker around the boss. It also increases your damage by 10% per turret active, which is a huge buff. For my test, you can tell how much of a damage increase you get by that bonus to damage per active turret, with the Awakened 2 test coming in almost a minute quicker. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to test Goblin Engineer in Abyssal Dark Forest yet, so I can't say for certain, but I do believe this may end up being a hunter worth prioritizing, which will make Goblin Engineer viable for the first few levels of Abyssal Dark Forest. Leprechaun's Awakened 2 ability is No Speed Limits. This increases Leprechaun's attack speed by 3% per level. This is a big buff to Leprechaun with my test allowing the treant kill to come in 40 seconds quicker. This is another one of those abilities you'll have to balance with Leprechaun's existing abilities. You can't just take it every time it pops up. You'll also need to focus on getting enough more experience and lucky experience abilities to keep your attack speed scaling. Leprechaun did work in Abyssal Dark Forest previously, and this just makes the hunter even better. I was able to solo some of the first Abyssal Dark Forest levels without having HP to damage in my set, and Leprechaun was still quite powerful. I don't think this is as high as a priority as some hunters like Sniper and Ape Lord, but if you do have the resources available and the option, I would definitely get Leprechaun to Awaken 2. Sun Wukong's Awaken 2 ability is Splitting Hairs. This creates 2 shadow clones that last for 2 seconds when exiting stealth. As you get more of them, this ability you'll be creating a ton of clones that will last for a while each time you exit stealth. This lets you run around until you enter stealth, attack to spawn your clones, then repeat. At the moment, it causes a lot of lag, but the buff to Sun Wukong is huge. I got the high roll on tree and health with 2 billion, but was able to kill it around a minute and 40 seconds quicker. I'm not sure how this will transition to harder levels in Dark Forest, or into Abyssal Dark Forest, but it's definitely a fun hunter to play with Awaken 2 and gets a big damage boost. I can't say for sure whether you should focus on getting this hunter Awaken 2, but it's definitely one to keep an eye on. Hoplite's Awaken 2 ability is This is Hunt Royale. When your bulwark bar is full, Hoplite throws one spear every 0.5 seconds, hitting a single target for 200% increased damage. Unfortunately, this test I ran wasn't able to showcase this new ability very well. The Awaken 2 kill was slightly quicker, but that could have just been luck. It does sound like an ability that would be a big boost to single target damage, so you'll most likely want to get this one as soon as you can. Keep an eye out for further tests and reviews of Hoplite though. Absorb's Awaken 2 ability is Ghastly Terror, which is the same as Torment's. It increases the damage of Deadly Terror by 100%. My Awaken 2 ended up being a few seconds slower, but the kill time was so quick it isn't much to compare. Absorb is already a strong support hunter. Deadly Terror makes enemies take terror damage every second when they are terrorized, and this Awaken 2 perk increases that terror damage. As far as I can tell, this doesn't increase the damage that enemies receive from other sources, so you may be better focusing on the already existing improved terror ability, which increases the damage from other sources if it is an option. Killergirl's Awaken 2 ability is Brain Damage, which adds 100% zombie damage and 50% undead damage each time it's taken. This could be very powerful in the right mode, such as Abyssal Dark Forest, but watching the video here obviously you aren't going to see a difference because all enemies don't take zombie damage or undead damage in Dark Forest. I was able to test Killergirl on a zombie floor in Abyssal Dark Forest, and was able to solo level 2. Killergirl is very niche unless these damage types are expanded across existing or future game modes. Time Traveler's Awaken 2 ability is Time Dilation. This decreases the duration between damage ticks from poison, fire, and necrosis by 10%. On paper, this sounds like a good ability, but my test didn't really show it very well. The kill times, again, were so close it's hard to draw any sort of conclusion. This does sound like an ability that would make him a great support hunter if you're allowing the DPS to trigger their damage ticks more often, but as with some of the other hunters, I think more testing is needed to see if Time Traveler can really find a spot outside of his normal uses. Firefluff's Awaken 2 ability is Legion. This increases the number of demons that can attach to a target by 3. I ran my first test and there wasn't much to show from it. Firefluff is a hunter that would benefit from a fire set. Looking at the comparison you can see, I maxed out at 4 demons attached to the boss anyways. After looking into this further, I found that you'll need to take multiple demon packs to gain the additional demons to allow them to attach. It does sound like a great upgrade, but unfortunately I think a bit more testing is required to see how valuable it really is. This set was the same as my previous set, except I swapped out 2 Earth, 1 Poison, and 2 Tentacle Power Stones for 5 level 7 Fire. The result of this test was the same as the previous one. The Awakened one ended up being a bit faster because I lost damage taking the Legion ability. I determined later that demon packs are needed to gain the additional demons required to really expand the damage dealt. I do think this ability will be powerful, but will require further testing. A Girl and Her Golem's Awakened 2 ability is Shatter Weapon. This decreases damage from the target by 2% per 1000 crystallization stacks on the target. A Girl and Her Golem is already a powerful hunter in many of the modes without this ability. If paired with the right hunter, her damage is very high and she already has great survivability. This Awakened 2 ability will give her even more survivability. It doesn't seem to be really needed in any of the modes, but it would definitely make your life easier in Abyssal Dark Forest. I'd mark this as a nice to have if you have the resources, but definitely not much as a priority as some of the others that get a larger boost. I know not all of these tests were able to show the hunters to their full potential, but I do hope you enjoyed the video seeing some of these new Awakened 2 abilities. If you want to support me, you can add my creator code Zarcost in-game and subscribe to my channel. Also, feel free to check out my website, huntroyaleguides.com, which is also linked in the description.